Welcome to Live Free. I'm Angela K. Austin. Together, we'll discuss books, we'll explore the world, and we'll do it with some of my closest friends. And hopefully, we'll make new ones along the way.
Hey everybody, this is Angela K. Austin, and today I am here with BA Tortuga. Say hi to everybody, BA.
Hi, y'all. I'm so glad to be here. This is so much fun. I'm so tickled.
And I am so happy that you are here with me. I'm going to give a shout out to Barbie. Hey, Barbie. I'm giving a shout out to Barbie Pomales because she recommended you to me. She reached out and was like, you must interview BA Tortuga. And I was like, cool, let's see if she'll say yes. And you did. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for asking. It's such an honor. I mean, it's just really cool to have someone reach out. That's just exceptional, and I really appreciate it.
Well, I want to learn from you because as I started to do research to just get some background so that we could have a good conversation today, you and I, had a couple of conversations, and I really want to know how you are just winning at this game of indie publishing. But before we get into that, I really want you to share with people just a little bit more about who BA is. Tell us, what you write, and tell us, why you write what you write.
Totally. Well, I write cowboys. I mean, that's my shtick. I grew up on a ranch in Texas, and I'm now in New Mexico with my wife, but I grew up, like literally on the cattle ranch with cows and the goats and the horses. And so I really write my people, but, and I started off writing all sorts of cowboys, but as my voice has grown, I've really focused on gay cowboys because I want to give those people a happy ending, right? It's very important to me that people people can see themselves in stories, and that people get to hear what cowboys sound like. At least my cowboys. Texas cowboys are are a certain kind, and everybody has their own voice. But the people I'm kind of respecting in my work are the people that I grew up with, and people like my daddy, who, is still a cowboy in East Texas, just doing his thing. And that's why I write what I write. I'm very proud I was the first lesbian author to be accepted into Western Writers of America. And I was the first Western writer writing gay cowboys to be accepted into the association too. So it's been nice to take something that people don't traditionally think as Western and, shine a light on that voice. And that, but really, I started writing cowboys because that's who I knew and that's who I loved. I'm a daddy's girl, and I love to write about men like my daddy and men like I grew up with, and the big families and the acceptance that, please God, one day will actually come in these smaller communities, and so that everybody can actually find their happy endings. It's just, I'm a lesbian, and I had to move to New Mexico to get married, and I want that, and it, of course, because we got married right before the Supreme Court made their decision. But still, I feel like there's a lot of people in Texas who aren't married because even though it's legal, it could get them in trouble, So, that was convoluted, but true. All of it was true.
Yeah. No, and it's, as you say that, of course, I think about just even what was the movie that came out that was based on the gay cowboys?
Brokeback Mountain.
So
yeah.
I've never read any other stories about, just really kind of that subject matter. And
Right.
So, when you were presented to me as a guest for this, I was just like, how is that received? And this is one of the things that we talk about so much because, my channel is so much about just, what I like to think of as maybe unique voices, or, just voices that may not be heard by so many people because they don't have kind of a mainstream or tons of money behind them. But, we're going to talk about how you're winning at the self-publishing game, but you have figured out how to, make this work for you, so how is it that you found a way to make, because when I think of cowboys, cowboy boots, cowboy hats, the tight jeans, the horse riding, the bull wrangling. I mean, the farmers, I think of that quintessential Marlboro kind of manly man, and when you talk about that, it's such a stereotype, even as I say the words out of my own mouth.
Right.
I know that is such a is it Hollywood image, I want to say? It's such a Hollywood kind of image because that's the story that got so much power behind it. You think
sure.
about, so how were you able to pick to make this work to where people are like, oh my God, I want to read these stories about these beautiful cowboys, who just happen to be gay? How were you able to make that happen?
Well, I think almost the whole answer is really simple because I just tell the truth.
Okay.
I am inventing characters, but the actual soul behind what I'm talking about, that's just a truth. Cowboys aren't perfect. Cowboys can be vain, and cowboys can be kind of stoic, and there's all of this deep Western culture that is the truth is the truth for those characters, right? They come from this place that's real. I'm a huge rodeo fan. I'm a huge Western fan. There are things about the Western culture that I am not a fan of, obviously. There are problematic things that we have to deal with and we have to address in all, just like Southern culture has. I mean, all cultures have things that they've got to address, right? That's part of being alive and living, right? Is to say, okay, we have these things that are wrong that we have to fix. But there's also basic core truths. And I really try to, in my characters, I try to let them live those truths. And the other thing I try one of the things I'm known for is families, like cowboy daddies. And to me, like I said, I'm a daddy's girl, right? My daddy is my hero. And so what I thought, that's what I want to show, that these gay cowboys can be their kids' heroes, and they can have families and raise their families, and it's hope, right? That one day we'll all be in a position where we can have our families, be them gay, transgendered, white, black, brown, that we have, that we can all have our families and celebrate, and in my case, celebrate Western culture, because and I don't mean like Western as in sides of the earth. I mean, specifically Western as in cowboy Western culture. Yeah. And I put out there what I want to believe can be, right? I want to believe. My son, who is transgender, came to me years and years and years ago and said to me, there's no books that I can see myself in where I can just be happy, Mom. I can't see that. And that hurt me. And so what I try to do is write books to where people can see that in this place, there is a happy ending. And if enough of us believe it, if enough of us know it, it will manifest itself. You know, the good Lord will hear this and let it get bigger and bigger. I mean, you know, what is it? Faith, hope, and love is the big, right? And to me, that's important. And so that I just try to put that out and say, okay, here's this wonderful love. I love cowboys. I love families. I love babies. I love, I have my happily ever after. I believe it. I knew from the second I saw her online that was my happily ever after. So, I'm just a really goofy romantic, huh?
No, I think we are all a little bit hopeless romantics, because if we weren't, we wouldn't be writing these stories, because
right.
We feel like there's something missing, like you said, whether it's Western American culture or Southern American culture or Southwestern American culture, Southwestern American culture. I mean, however you divide us, in those little things, there is specifically a way of life in those areas, and so like you said, you wanted to do testament to it because, as your bio says, you're Texas through and through, and it's like you wanted to pay homage to that, but you wanted to tell a different type of story. And, I do the same thing, I am an African American woman. And I always say that to people because that's a very specific type of history. But I'm also from Tennessee. So that's a specific type of history. So if you read my books, there will be some component that's religious, racial, or family. Like
right.
you add family. Is religious, racial, or family? Because I was telling somebody once, I did something, and I actually think I have it on my YouTube channel, but I did a search to see how many churches were in Memphis. It was, I don't know, it was like some incredible number of churches. And I was like, how can you write a story set in Memphis, Tennessee, without it having some sort of religious component? I don't know how you do, even if the component is that the person is an atheist, because it just is. So, I like to play with all of those. And because I feel like it tells a story that I want to tell. So I completely get that you want to show this other part. And when you say that, you say your son is transgendered.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so maybe that's one of the reasons that Barbie even recommended you to me. I wrote a book that was, it's a book called Rumor. It's been out for years, but it was set in the LGBTQ kind of community because it was set around a shelter. And the shelter protected, different members of the LGBT community. But one of the love stories in that book was a male to female trans. And so that was like a sub plot, or not even a subplot, but it was one of the stories, one of the love stories. So it was a very, so maybe that's why Barbie, she knows me well. But I love that. And I love that you were inspired not only to write these kinds of stories because of your dad, but because, of your son. So, but what was that like? Did you ever try the traditional route with your books? Or did you just, or did you say, okay, I don't see these voices out here. I'm just going to write and I'm going to, like, how did you make this, successful? Because like I've been hinting to you, you have been winning the game of indie, like you share with me. Do you mind sharing? Because you're a full-time indie pub author, right?
Yes. My wife and I are both full-time authors. Mm-hmm. And I actually, weirdly enough, started out as a poet. And, that you could write a lot of poetry and starve. A lot.
Yeah.
And I had just I was a teenage mom, and so I went to college late. And when I graduated from college, I had this degree, and but like I said, I was working at IBM doing illustrations, trying to figure out what I was going to do with my writing, and I fell into. I had my focus in college was lesbian literature and erotic literature, and so I found a bunch of authors who were writing gay literature. And I was like, okay, I could totally go there. That's cool. And we all started kind of writing together and sharing stories. And this was back in like 2000. And we got to talking about it, and nobody was publishing it. Nobody was publishing this kind of work. And I'm like, there's this huge fan fiction community that loves to read it. There's this huge live journal community that likes to read original fiction. How come no one's publishing it? And so my wife and I sat down one evening and said, well, I'm an illustrator. She worked at libraries. We knew, we liked each other. At that, we weren't married, obviously. In fact, she was living in Colorado and I was in Texas. And we went, well, we could do that. We could publish books. We know how, we think. And the next thing you know, we started a press called Tortuga Press. And we were the first male or gay publisher, romance publisher. And we did that for 13 years, writing and publishing and working with other authors and getting to know people. And then at some point, the business kind of got big and we went, we're not publishers, we're writers. We want to just write. And so we sold the business and went to writing full time. And the community, I mean, I've always kind of been a romance person. I mean, I wrote romantic poetry, but the male community was just amazing and welcoming. And I met my wife through it. And I've just been incredibly lucky that we've had this community that because we've been doing this now, well, since 2003 professionally. And, I think we had the community behind us. I've had some amazing friends, Sean Michael, Jody Payne, Kieran Kelly. Those people have been my best friends now for 20 years. And, we've been through a lot of ups and downs with different people going out of business and different distributors going out of business and having to learn new things. I mean, you figure when we started, there wasn't Amazon, right? We did PDFs with email, and then we literally burned CDs and mailed them.
I remember that too. Yeah.
This was back when Alora's Cave was huge, but they had no boys touching on their front page. At the very top, it said, girls touching is fine, but no boys touching. And I was, so we have been through all of the weird and wonderful things, and all the terrible things. It's moved so fast. Like I said, when we started, we were burning CDs and mailing them to people. And now, everything is virtual, and, and it all moves so fast, and the market has grown, the world has grown. I just put out for free the very first book that I wrote, and I was reading it. It makes no sense because the entire plot could be fixed with a smartphone. If you had a phone, no problem, because because at this point, I wrote this book in 2003. So they had cell phones, but they were expensive. And you remember when they had the phones on the planes, that you could pull out.
Yeah. Back in the
fancy. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm sitting there and I'm reading this, and I just put a little note in and said, I know, but for all of you people who are now 20 almost, or you're almost grown and you weren't even born yet,
Yeah.
Once upon a time, when I was not even young, they didn't have cell phones or texts or anything like that, and it just wasn't an option. So.
Yeah. Like, I saw this video online one time. It was a grandmother with her granddaughter,
Uh-huh.
and she had the grandmother had a rotary phone, and she told her granddaughter to make some sort of phone call or something, and her granddaughter is looking at the phone like how do you use this? I'm like, oh my god. Yeah. And that's when everybody knew phone numbers, right? Because you make a mistake, you gotta like start all over again. It's horrible. So
yeah,
no.
I'm terrible. I can remember my best friend from high school. I remember her phone number. I don't know my wife's.
Because back then you had to know the number.
Yes, and you could, and like my memory, I had like I knew every friend I had. I knew their phone numbers.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
That's the problem though. Whenever you read an old book, that's something that you always have to be careful about, because you always see like 18 million things you can change, you know? And I'm like, I have to do that with some of my books. I got to take some back. But as you were talking, I was thinking about what you were saying about how your business grew. You sold your publishing business, and then groups like, you know, we fast forward, you know, we look at groups like Alora's Cave and one of my former publishers, Red Rose, and all these other publishers who just kind of sank. So you sold yours, and then you started doing all of this self-publishing, and now you're kind of embedded in this community. That's still so curious to me. I have a friend, and I've mentioned him a couple of times in a couple of these interviews, but Brian Michaels, who is a gay male who writes male. Mm-hmm. And as you were saying, Alora's Cave, like, you know, on the front thing, it said like no boys touching. Yep. It's so funny because, you know, he and I, we talk about all this stuff all the time, you know, how, you know, publishers will say, you know, if, and I hear this too as an African-American woman, if you have a person of color on your cover, how it won't sell, or if you have, you know, this man and that man, you know, whatever. So, you know, you hear all these things about why things won't succeed. And as I listen to you speak, I'm like, you've broken through all of these walls to where now you and your wife are both, you know, living a healthy life, you know, as indie authors. I mean, do you think there was any trick to it other than just being a good writer, putting out consistent content, you know, being true, like you say, writing the truth? How did you find the readers who would accept that truth? Because, you know, I look at, like I said, he's a good friend of mine, and I look at your success, I look at him, and he's been with some of these big publishers, you know, like a Lucid and a whatever, you know, and it's like, it's so interesting to me because I feel like there's such a fine line that you can walk, you know, to where you'll find this readership who will just kind of gobble up everything, or the readership who's like, what is this? You know, there's that fine line. How do you think you managed to really, I mean, I know you say, you know, write the truth, but, you know, but how did you, I guess, find that truth that clicked with people who wanted to read that truth that you were writing?
I think, and it's really funny because if you had asked me that question 10 years ago, I would have told you that everything I did moved very slowly. And it's still true, but now I'm glad. Instead of, I didn't have this big, huge boom, everything, you know, everything has been very steady and very organic. Like I'm not the person who went out and got 10,000 Twitter followers, but my Twitter, you know, my Facebook has grown, and my readership has grown, not because I did anything, I don't think, to make it so. It's the people that care for me and that love me that have made it so. It is, you know, the blessing of the good Lord that has made it so. It is because I've just done my thing. I've been steady, and I've told my stories, and I've been, like on my social media, I'm not fake. I'm just BA. People come on, people get what I say I am. It's not a lie. When you meet me, I'm just me. I'm just a good old girl from Texas who is incredibly blessed. But it's the people that love me. It's those 5 readers at the start who now are, 5,000 readers or 50,000 readers or however many thousand readers. It's that, I stayed true the whole time. And people have just said, no, this is it. This is truth. And I don't mean that in that, kind of, preachy way, just that I'm staying true to my voice. I'm telling the stories that make me happy. I'm not your big conflict writer, I am this sweet, happy, hot, right. I mean, that's what I write. I really don't want
it hot. Okay.
Yes, happy and hot. That's me. I mean, I just kind of in so many ways I have been so blessed, right? And I want to give that back to people and say, look, here's happy. We only have so much time on this world, and I want to bring the happy, and people have responded to that, and I'm just lucky and blessed. And I mean, my answer was, I was consistent. I did what I said I was going to do, and people have responded to that. And it has taken, years for me to build this. I mean, I didn't start yesterday and now I'm where I am. My very first book sold like 2 copies.
Been there. We've all been there.
Right. And it just kind of, and I've been super lucky in that I didn't, when I started with the male community, we were the first ones to publish it. So it was tiny. And then when it exploded, it didn't really affect us in that sort of explosive way because we were old, the old guard already.
Already there. Yeah.
Right here. And so we just sort of kept doing our thing and writing our books and interacting with our fans and doing the best we can. And like I said, I cannot express to you how blessed and lucky I am to have the fans and the readers and the people that care all around the world who, for living such a very, especially right now, such an isolated life. I haven't left the house but like 9 times since January. I have friends all over the world. Yeah. This is amazing. This is, when I was a kid and because I've never wanted to be anything else but a writer, right? Never. That's always been what I wanted to do. When I was little, I told my mother, when I was 2, I want to grow up and write stories. And if I couldn't have imagined that this would be life now at 50, where, back when I was 10, I would never have thought, right? I mean, can you imagine in the 70s thinking about life now? How, where I can talk to you right now, I can get to know you here. Yeah. And, that's amazing.
I'm a child of the 70s too. So trust me, I tell people all the time, it's like, think about, like you say, right now in this moment, we're talking to each other in this way. Whereas right. I remember when my first cell phone, I don't know, it had that big, what I call butt on the back of it, because it was the battery, so it was like a flip phone, and then the battery.
Oh, yes.
Was like
you remember the great big ones you used, when people, you get them for work, and they were like this big.
Oh, like the tall ones. Yeah, yes. This was just like a personal one. Like that one was crazy. But it's just like, think about how much everything, because, like I was talking with people, here in Memphis, I work with a group called the Memphis Black Arts Association. And usually once a year, this year we have not done it because of COVID, but usually once a year we do a class where we teach people how to self-publish, right? And
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, it's a ton of fun for me. I love doing stuff like that. But when I first got into this whole game, like so many people, I wanted to do the traditional route. You do the traditional route, you send it off, you go to agents, you go to publishers, and then, if it does happen for you, blessed be. If it doesn't happen for you, what do? And so, that's when I was introduced to digital publishers, the small presses,
Right.
But then so many of them, they just fell away, for all kinds of different reasons, usually not for legitimate ones, but, some of them, did, but then, you're there and you're like, I still want to write and I have this thing that I want to do, and how do I do it? And then that's how I was introduced to indie publishing. And, and it's like, so teaching it to other people for me has felt like I get to take away some of the blinders from them. And, I get to offer them like a place to start, and then they can go from there with whatever it is they want to do. Either they can go ahead and try to self-publish, or, even if they don't self-publish, they could try to continue to do the traditional route, but at least they would know that they have other options,
Sure. Right. Right.
Yeah, you may not be a millionaire, but you could be a thousandaire. Get a couple thousand.
There you go. Pay that mortgage.
Please. It's like, keep it coming. So I love that. I love that, that you sold your business and you were helping, others doing whatever. And now you're focusing on your writing. And some of my friends and I, we talk about that all the time, is that sometimes all you really want to do is just write, but still it's a hard thing to do, because as a writer, you have to be a marketer and
yes,
social media expert. You have to, sometimes be a proofreader, you have to pull, even if you are just a writer, I say that with a grin, you still have to do so much. But let's talk about your books. Tell me, so like, what was the book that you feel like, if there is one, that kind of changed the game for you? What was the book that you felt like when it got out there, people were like, who is this BA? This is awesome. And where do we find her other books? What do you think was that book for you?
It was probably Blind Ride, which was the first book in the Rough Stock series. And it is the story about a bull rider who, I'm not going to tell too much, but basically he ends up losing his sight and hiding it while he's still a bull rider.
Bull rider? Wait, my whole face just twisted up. I'm like, how is he a bull rider who cannot see?
He is, and the entire series, which is still ongoing. In fact, I am right now writing the end of the first season of those stories. I think there's 9 of them in total, and they're out with Totally Bound. And that series is, because it is really, really very Texan, and really, really the first book that I wrote where it really focused on the sport of bull riding. And I think that was just a lot of, because like for me, I've always been a rodeo fan, and it never occurred to me that people wouldn't know about bull riding. It just seemed like this perfectly logical thing that everyone on earth knows about bull riding. And I think, right?
Yeah.
And so that was my, that introduced a bunch of people to bull riding, and it got that conversation going. And then, like I said, there's 9 books, I think, in the series right now, and it's still ongoing. And that's the one where people kind of went, oh, because, and I think it's odd, because I think had I thought about people not knowing about bull riding, I would have been more careful and more, explained more. But since I didn't think about it, it intrigued people more, and so it's just been it's a fun series, and it's been around me now for years, and it's just sort of part of who I am, that series. So that would be the one
that
I
sounds
think.
fun, and it's so funny because I mean, growing up in Tennessee, I have a certain type of Southern culture because I grew up in Tennessee, but I grew up in Memphis, which is explicit. I mean, it's extremely kind of like I don't want to say urban, but I guess urban. It's more densely populated, so it's not so spread out, and so it's kind of like not the typical kind of Southern vibe. But it's so funny whenever I go someplace, it's always like people think of Texas when they think of the South. It's like almost no matter where I go, and so then they attribute Texas kind of things to Tennessee and to Memphis, and I'm like, I don't know anything about what you're talking. Like I don't know, like you say, everybody knows bull riding. I'm like, I don't know anything about any of that because I never, I've never been to a rodeo in my life, and I'm from the South, so it's just like those are the kinds of things that would be intriguing to me because I would read it and then I would be sitting there like, well, what is this and what is that and how? Because in my head I'm like, every movie I've ever seen of somebody riding a bull or doing anything like that, whenever riding, well, with bulls, anytime I've seen anything like that, I'm like, how can somebody blind be in an enclosed environment? So now you've got me intrigued. Now I'm like, how is that even a possibility without him being like gored to death, So I'm like, I so want to see, now I want to read that. But now, and so, as we keep talking about your books, like, what, I like to ask authors this because people ask it to me and I get like, but what's your favorite book that you've written? What's the favorite thing that so we know what people like, but what about what you like?
Well, and it's funny because most authors that I talk to will tell you that their favorite book is the one that didn't sell. And the same with me. My favorite book is called Redemption's Ride. And it's a paranormal old Western. And it's about a hellhound, a shifter, and a preacher who has fallen from grace. And the hellhound, at the beginning of the story, the hellhound has redeemed himself and the demons are hunting him. And the story is how this preacher meets this redeemed hellhound and finds his soul again and finds his faith again. And it was not well received because it has a lot of religious undertones, obviously.
Yeah.
But it meant a lot to me, and I think it's funny and scary and interesting, and that's my favorite. And nobody loves it but me, just me. That's okay because it's still out there and I still love it.
And you know what? And that really is okay. And I tell people because like I have something that I'm working on now that'll probably be out by, I don't know, maybe the end of August, top of September. But it does deal with religion because it's hard not to put religion in a book when you're from Tennessee. It's just hard.
Exactly, yes.
But I kind of feel like this is something that I think will be one of my favorite things that I've ever written. I don't know how people are going to like it. It's got a lot of things going on, but, but, whenever somebody asks me that question, it's so weird because I always, it kind of ends up being this thing where like my favorite book is like usually the one that I'm like kind of like working on or just released. And not for any other reason other than I'm just so close to those characters. But in this book that I'm talking about now hasn't even been released. And I'm like, I like these characters, but their lives are so, the story is so intricate that I really like the way that the story came together. So I can get that.
Oh, cool.
It's something so different and it's scary and funny. Because when you said a hellhound redeemed, I'm like, can they be redeemed? It's a hellhound. It's in the redeem, BA? How do you redeem a hellhound? But okay, I like that. I like that. That's kind of cool. So tell us, what are you working on now? What's coming out next for you?
My next release is on the 28th of July. Yay! And it's I write a universe. It's not really a series, but I write a universe with Jody Payne called East Meets Westerns. And it's so
East, like the East side of America, or East culture, Eastern culture?
Oh, like the East side, like she's from the New York, New Jersey area.
Oh, okay.
And so our shtick is kind of the city mouse, country mouse.
Okay.
She'll write the people from, the East Coast, and I write the Southerners or the Westerners, depending, and how they come together. But the second book in that universe is coming out. It's called Flying Blind. And again, strangely enough, it is about a bull rider who is not blind, but he is losing his sight.
Okay.
And has been slowly for many, many, many years. And he meets this guy from New York in a bar during a bull riding, and they hit it off. And it's sort of just this, how these two completely, these two completely opposite human beings meet and find a spark, and then figure out how to, parlay that into happily ever after. When you're talking about almost blind guy who has never driven a car and lives in the middle of nowhere, and this man who's living in Manhattan, right? Who owns who runs a corporation, and you're just, it's not a money separation, because, the Cowboy's not, he's well off, he's fine money-wise, but it's this total, how do these two people that couldn't be farther apart come together and find something and make something that people can believe will last forever. So yeah,
I give you credit for that, because in today's environment, people coming together across their differences,
right? It is.
It is like, don't just stop at the surface level. See where you really connect with another person.
Well, that's it, right? That's the whole secret. If we could, I know that it's like stupidly Pollyanna of me. I know that, but if people, if one person could talk to one person and have, because the fact is that we can. And if you talk to people and learn and relax and let yourself be open to experiencing the things that I don't even know how to say it. It's okay. Yes, I do. So way back when everyone started with Black Lives Matter, and I know that this is a very sensitive topic, so if you don't want to put it in, I understand. But I wasn't sure what to do, because my grandfather was Black, my grandmother was Middle Eastern, and then on the other side, my father is white. And so, I am not a person of color. Obviously, I'm pale as anything. I have sisters and brothers who that are, have dark skin, and they have the issues, but I don't. I kept, people would say Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. And I was like, okay, I don't understand. I don't get it. And I had a friend, and I finally just went to somebody who I could say, okay, I'm not an asshole. I don't understand what the difference here, help me. And she said, okay, if I say, save the rainforest, you don't have a problem with that? I said, no. She goes, if I say, does that mean all forests, every forest but rainforest shouldn't be saved? I said, well, no, that's stupid. And she's like, I was like, okay, right. I get it. I totally, I just, because sometimes I'm not so bright. And I was like, okay, I get it. But that's what it takes, right? It takes talking to being able to ask questions, getting the answers, and then being able to say, okay, I was wrong. I get it. I understand now. And now I can do the right thing because I understand, because I was willing to be wrong and just figure, and hear what someone was trying to tell me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Everybody isn't open. The thing about Black Lives Matter, and for anybody who's curious, I actually put a little short 4-minute video on my YouTube channel. What your friend said to you about the rainforest versus all forests was a great, analogy.
Right.
By when people are out in the streets right now protesting, what we're trying to get people to see is just that what a lot of people of color, have known for many years is that there are just systemic things that have been okay for so long that, people of color have had to, unfortunately accept and rationalize and continue. People who were non-POCs, because it didn't touch your lives, did not realize that these things were so atrocious. And every time something was amplified and highlighted, people will always say, well, what about this? Or what about that? Or what happened before the video started? Or what happened this? Or what happened that? But really the only thing that anybody is trying to get people to realize is that there has been, since the end of slavery, there has been no opportunity for Black people in America to really take a deep breath without there being something kind of oppressing them. And it's been done in a way, in what I almost call like a shadow world, right? Because if you're not visibly a person of color, if you're not visibly someone that somebody wants to stop, and I say visibly because, like you say, you have these other people in your family, right?
Right.
But you yourself, don't represent as a person of color.
Exactly.
But if you and I walked into a place together, we're about the same age, I'm very visibly a Black woman, and so if we walked into a place together, how you'd be treated, how I'd be treated would be different. And it just is, it's a shadow world. And what becomes frustrating for me and for a lot of people of color, what becomes frustrating is that you just become exhausted because you feel like no matter what you say, people aren't listening. They don't care. They don't want to hear it. They almost don't want to become aware, and that's why, when you say, you didn't know, that's fine, but you ask. The thing about it is that if you have somebody in your life that you trust and you ask them a question, that is sincere, like you say, you write your books with a genuineness, with sincerity, with truth, as long as people continue, I'm of the opinion that as long as people continue to approach each other with respect, and they have true questions that they want to ask. And, I have no problem answering people's questions, because if you don't take the time to talk to the person who's asking the question, then what are we doing? Because the ones who aren't asking the questions, they don't want to know. They don't care. They're happy in not knowing. They're happy in not understanding. So no matter whether we're talking about Black Lives Matter, if we're talking about gay cowboys, if we're talking about interracial dating, if we're talking about whatever genres we write about, whatever it is that we're doing, if we don't try to just spark some conversations and get people to stop, I don't want to say the word narrow, but we've got to get people to stop being so kind of focused in on this is what I know and what I know is true, people have got to be open to. People have just got to be open to other voices and learning new things. Every day I feel like I learn something new, BA, every day.
Every day.
Every day, because purposely set out to have conversations that I want to have, to meet people. Like I say, you know, even meeting you and having this conversation today, when Barbie told me, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go check her out, see who she is. You know, it's just having new conversations. I think that, you know, that's the only thing that we can do, I think, not only in our country, but in others. But in our country right now, it's very heightened. And I think that if we don't take the time to have these conversations with each other and to face our fear, you know, what is it? Get a little uncomfortable with the uncomfortable. A little comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's it.
That's
you
it.
know, if we don't take the time to do that, you know, I don't know how we're going to heal, you know, as a country, because what we have been doing for so long is expecting those who are aware of the shadow world. You know, we've been expecting them to continue and to ignore it. And so people of color we ignored the statues, we ignored the schools named after them. We ignored, you know, the changes in the history books. You know, I got big issues with Texas and that history book changing. You guys
Yes.
But, you know, we got like all kinds of things that people of color have been, you know, told to ignore and forgive. But when you see, you know, Ahmad, you know, when you see George and you see Brianna, you know, and you see the Trayvons, and you see the people who are losing their lives steadily and repeatedly, I don't really know what people expect anymore from people of color. Because, you know, if Colin takes a knee at a football game, oh, that is disrespectful. But now it's okay. Now everybody's kneeling, you know? And so if they would have started listening then,
Right.
maybe it wouldn't be so explosive now, you know? So I don't know what to say, but I do know that having people who are willing to ask questions, having people who are willing to, you know, explore, you know, I just think that I just hope, and, you know, quite frankly, I hope and pray that there are enough people who are willing to ask questions and enough people who are curious enough about the person next to them, that instead of hiding, you know,
Right.
that we step out and we get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And, you know, I don't know what else to say, but I you know, I commend you for asking your friend a question, because it starts.
Well, exactly. Well, and you know, the last thing I would want to do is hurt someone without meaning to. You know, if I'm going to be evil, then let me at least understand what, you know, let it be a choice.
You let it be a choice. Like, I meant to say that.
Exactly.
Exactly what I was doing.
I might have a little evil in me, but let it be a purpose. Don't let me be evil accidentally, because that's not my thing.
Yeah.
And you know, I like people. Yeah. And I like to learn. I mean, you know, that's what we're here for, right? If you're not learning something, what are you doing?
Exactly. Yeah.
We have to grow as a person. You have to grow, and then as a people, we have to grow, and as a world, we have to grow and figure this out. We have to stop being silly and being stupid. And
we do.
Listen.
We do. You know, I was reading this morning about just kind of like the meaninglessness of a lot of things, you know, and it's just, you know, if we're not striving to be, you know, good people, you know, to love and to allow, you know, love, you know, to, I don't know, just figure out how to have good hearts, you know, good intentions, you know, then what's the purpose of it? What are we leaving? What are we doing all this for? What are we leaving behind, BA?
It all comes down to love, doesn't it? I mean, when you really get down to the core of it all, it's love. And if you're living from a space of love,
yes,
then then you may make some really bad mistakes, but I believe at least that if that's your intention, then you're going to figure it out.
I believe too. I'm with you, BA. I think so, because I think out of love you get respect and kindness, you get gentility. I think that if you're coming from a place of love, whether, I don't know, because, a lot of people who, they would say that we are Pollyannas. I feel like it's going to get labeled Pollyanna, but it's okay.
That's okay.
So it's like, it's whatever, but,
there are worse things that we could be labeled as.
This is true. This is very true. But whether you're coming from a religious place or a non-religious place, we can all agree that if you come from love, that still inspires these other things. Because I would hope that, out of love, that you do have these things, respect and kindness, and, So I just think that is. I think, unfortunately, I think America needed this for a moment. We needed to take a moment to take a step back and look at our true selves and, what we've permitted. And, because there should not be such ease. There should be, when I think about Ahmad, I think about George, I think about Tamir, and I think about Trayvon. There should be a certain amount of fear, when it comes to taking someone's life, I mean, coming home with Skittles and a soda should not condemn you to death,
Right.
Going for a run should not condemn you to death. And it's just, there should be certain amount of fear associated with an intent like that. So no, I think that,
we have to be better than that.
We have to be better.
We have to be better.
We have to be. Yeah. And as I continue, I don't even know where to go with that. I don't even know how to close this.
No, that's good.
Thank you for sharing with me. Thank you for sharing that you asked a friend, and thank you for sharing your curiosity and your question.
Well, thank you for talking to me. I mean, this has been a blessing. I'm so glad to get to know you and to talk with you. I mean, it's just been glorious.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure, because like I say, I just think that in so many ways we need to promote each other. We need to
totally
extend the hand and say, hey, wait a minute. So did I say, social media, how do people contact you? How do they reach out and find out more about you and what you have going on next?
The glorious thing about picking up a pseudonym like BA Tortuga is that I'm the only one. So if you look for BA Tortuga on any social media, that's me.
Okay.
Because nobody else has it. So it's magical. So I don't have to explain or put writer or anything. I'm the only one.
Yeah. There are a lot of other Angela K. Austin. People are always like, why you always say Angela K. Austin? Because there's Angela K. There's Angela Austin. You need to say Angela K. Austin so people know that it's me.
Right.
So
right.
I get that a lot. Awesome. Well, I want to say again, it has been my pleasure to talk to you today. It's been so cool getting to know you, BA. I love learning about how you started and how you helped others, and truly just to see someone else who is really smashing the game of self-publishing and making it like a success, like a real thing, That is amazing. It has been such a pleasure to host you.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for reaching out to me. I've had a ball.
Awesome. All right, everybody out there in YouTube world and podcast land, it's BA Tortuga and Angela K. Austin. All right, hit us up on social media, check out our books, and just drop a note and say hi. Talk to you guys all again soon.